a potential extension for Micah Parsons. Our own Chris Canty had a very interesting take on how that defensive star should handle the situation.
Micah Parsons shouldn't step foot on a football field this fall without a new deal. Micah Parsons is the best player on the damn team, and he's scheduled to make $2.9 million this year. Micah Parsons needs to take a page out of the Ezekiel Elliott playbook and demand that the Dallas Cowboys pay him his money right now.
That's our buddy Canty on ESPN Radio. Dan Orlovsky, you're shaking your head. You agree?
He's 100% right. Micah Parsons shouldn't step on the field without a new contract. Which one of the big three in Dallas is going to play the hard game, the long game? Is it going to be him, Dak Prescott, or CeeDee Lamb? It's going to be hard to pay all three of those guys what they're worth, in my opinion. And Micah Parsons is arguably the most disruptive edge in all of the NFL. Him, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt into that conversation. Greeny, the last player in the history of the NFL to have 12-plus sacks in seasons 1, 2, and 3 of their NFL careers, a guy named Reggie White. For $2.9 million, there's no way that Micah Parsons should risk injury, risk lessering his value, if that's possible, by stepping on the field for the Dallas Cowboys. Those guys need all to get paid: quarterback, wide receiver, and defensive end.
This is why I love this time of year, Greeny, because it is show me what I'm worth to you season. And I love that, because this is the time where if you have leverage, if you are star talent, and you know that your team deems that you're special, that you're versatile, that you are a leader, when your name is mentioned with all-time greats, yeah, I can't be making 2.9. Like, that's not enough. Like, that's wild. And unfortunately for the Cowboys, they put themselves in this position, but that's not on Micah. I don't think any player who wants to maximize his leverage should play, especially if he is a cornerstone guy on his team.
Right, I get it. Here's the thing. They're going to have to pay CeeDee Lamb because he is much closer. He is closer to the end of his contract. Dak completely controls his own situation. If I'm Dak, I'm playing it out. I'm not signing a contract if I'm Dak, and I become an unrestricted free agent at the end of this coming season, and I make $1 trillion in my next deal. The interesting one will be whether or not they do Micah Parsons, because the way the contract situation is set up, Dan, he doesn't have a lot of options if he decides to hold out.
Yes, he does. They can't make the playoffs without him.
Right.
The reality is all three of those guys, if either of them held out for any amount of time, significant amount of time this year, the Cowboys cannot make a playoff run, and they won't make the playoffs. I think they're the sixth best team in the NFC right now with all three of those guys. If any one of them, specifically Micah Parsons, says, I'm not playing, they can't make the playoffs. So while he may not have leverage when it comes to the 3 seasons, going into his 4th season, they can't make the playoffs without him.
You expect this to get done quickly? All three?
Okay. So let's talk about this, because first off, are we sure that the Cowboys even want to make the playoffs this season, quite honestly? Because if they did want to make the playoffs, then they would have probably taken care of these players right now, right? They wouldn't have said, hey, our big move is Ezekiel Elliott. Like, if they were really trying to make legit moves and make a playoff run, a Super Bowl run, they would have handled this offseason significantly different. I mean, it's just not. I just don't think. I don't see how that could be argued. Who could possibly look at this team and say that they're a true contender? No one. And if that's the point, then why even make the playoffs? What's the point? So, if anything, there's a lot of rumors going around that they move on from Dak, and then if they move on from Dak, or if Dak wants to move on from Dallas, as Greeny's kind of suggesting, if that's the case, well, then if you're the Cowboys, you definitely don't want to make the playoffs, because you want to be able to draft a quarterback as high as you can, right? So, but to focus more on Micah, there's a few things. Okay, listen, I think Micah holding out for a new deal can be appropriate in terms of actually playing regular season games. But in terms of everything else, I don't think he should. Because if you're a leader of the team, okay? If you're trying to truly be a leader, and you are considered to be the leader and the cornerstone of this team, and then the most important player and all that, I would go to management. I would go to whoever Micah actually ends up has the meeting with, who he talks to actually directly, if it even is Micah, or if it's his agent, and say, I want to be a Dallas Cowboy for life. I am going to be a fantastic leader. I'm going to do everything that I'm supposed to do in the offseason. I'm going to give all the best interviews, and I am going to be an ambassador and a leader for not only this team, but the Dallas Cowboys franchise as a whole. and represent this organization in the most positive light, but I am not going to play a single regular season game. I will hold out every single game. And then that now does two things. Because now you're showing the Cowboys who you are as an adult in the room, as a leader, as well as an elite athlete and obviously player in the NFL. Because right now the way it's being handled it is, I want my money and I'm being a big baby. I'm not being a good leader. I'm giving weird, awful sound bites about like how I don't even haven't even talked to the new defensive coordinator and how he likes things his way and I like things my way. Like he's being combative and weird. And why do you want to pay a man that? You don't that's not a good negotiating tactic. That doesn't make you feel good about paying someone all this money in the world. Because part of that paycheck that you're paying Micah is not just on the field production. It's everything else. It just is. It's how you represent the Dallas Cowboys. How are you being a leader? You know, how are you rallying the troops, the media, however we want to slice it. It's more than just, well, how many sacks does he have? How many pressures? How many tackles? How many this? How many that? Don't get me wrong. That's obviously majority of it and the bulk of it. But when you are at the level of a Micah and you're considered to be, you're supposed to have the level of impact that you have when you are at the level of Micah, it's more than just that. If we expect it out of the quarterbacks, and you're going to expect it out of someone like Micah, because he is essentially the quarterback of the defense. And I just think that he's going about it in the wrong way. Like, again, I think holding out can be completely appropriate. I really, really do. Especially if you feel like you're being obviously severely underpaid. But the idea that you should just hold out 100% and be combative in the media and not show up to minicamp or, you know, not show up to any of the workouts and preseason and all of that type of stuff, I think that is the wrong way of going about it. Make yourself irreplaceable, especially if you want the money from the Dallas Cowboys. If you're okay not wanting to be in Dallas Cowboys, then that's fine. Then sure, then just hold out, right? And I was talking to people in the comment section on one of my other previous Cowboys videos, and they said it's clear to them that they think that Micah no longer wants to be a Dallas Cowboy. And if that's the case, then yeah, I guess keep doing exactly what you're doing, because you're just not making the Cowboys want to sign you. You're just not. And again, I know how elite Micah is, but it's just more than that. It just is. So I think the Cowboys are in this very bizarre, weird situation that to a degree they created themselves, but it's also the players. Like, this is more on Micah. Like I said, Micah should be handling this way better. Way better. Imagine if, think of the true leaders and the elite players in the NFL that win and win and win. And I'm going to name a lot of quarterbacks obviously like a Patrick Mahomes or like Tom Brady. You know, I think it's relevant to look at essentially the two most winningest players in the NFL, let alone in NFL history, let alone just quarterbacks, and be like, think to yourself, what would Mahomes do in this situation if he felt that he was being underpaid and needed a new deal? Like, what would he do? Would he be saying the things, I haven't even talked to our new OC. I understand Andy likes it done this way, but better believe he's never played with someone like, you know, like Patrick Mahomes. Like, do you see Mahomes saying a statement like that? Do you see Tom Brady just not showing up? Like, no. And you want your players, the players that you're going to pay massive amounts of money, you want them to have a winning collective mindset, a leadership mentality. And I understand that his position is not the same as a quarterback, but what precedent are we setting? What bar are we setting? And it just doesn't make sense. And if you have the culture already established, like if you already have the Patrick Mahomes, the Tom Brady, the Joe Burrow, then sure, bringing on Micah makes total sense. Total sense. But they don't have that. They don't have the Andy Reid, the Sean McVay. They don't have the Patrick Mahomes. They don't have that. So when you're relying on Micah to being the true leader arguably more of a leader and more of a voice than Dak Prescott to the Cowboys, at least to the players, then you got to do better. Otherwise, you're just setting your team up for failure. And there's already rumors that apparently the Ravens are willing to make a big play for Micah, whatever that means. You know, I don't know what exactly that would entail, but I was reading that earlier today, actually. So I'm curious to see, you know, I'm curious to see, does Micah just want money? Does he not care where he goes? Does he want to win? Does he want to be with Dallas? Like, what does Micah actually want? Because as of right now, I just think that this is just being handled incredibly poorly. And the Cowboys as a whole are just not doing a good job either. But the players are also not making it any easier for them. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think Micah should hold out for a new deal? Do you think that the Cowboys can make the playoffs with or without some of these players? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.